Breaking news tonight, a massive earthquake in Venezuela prompting tsunami advisories for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, plus a dangerous heat wave taking hold both here and overseas. Take a look, some new video we're just getting in of people running out of buildings as that violent quake hits Venezuela. And out west, powerful wildfires erupting, crews battling these tough conditions, and the record high temperatures turning deadly overseas. Paris shutting down iconic landmarks. Our reporters on the ground. Also breaking tonight, the plane diverted after a pilot had a medical emergency on board, and the dramatic crash landing in Alaska on a separate flight. The whole thing caught on camera, how everyone managed to walk away. Shark attack in paradise, a 12-year-old bitten in the Bahamas. Plus, this terrifying encounter, a shark circling a paddleboarder. The powerful earthquake jolting Northern California, wine bottles shattering, food flying off store shelves. Have you seen this giraffe? The animal somehow still missing weeks after escaping from a Texas ranch. Tensions escalating inside the GOP, why President Trump was apparently locked in a shouting match with one Republican behind closed doors. Top story starts right now. Hi there, I'm Hallie Jackson in for Tom tonight, and we are coming on the air with breaking news. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake rocking Venezuela, and separate quakes reported in California and Japan. I want to show you some of the video. We are just now getting into it. These chaotic moments on the streets of Caracas, dust filling the air after the capital there in Venezuela felt that intense shaking. You see people walking around, some of them looking confused. A baseball game coming to a halt, people running for safety. You see the light fixture up there swaying. People running for safety to the center of the field. Just hours before that, we saw a 5.6 quake hitting Northern California, knocking shelves of food to the ground. We're also following a 6.9 quake in Japan with tsunami advisories in effect there. There's a lot going on, lot to watch. We've got Bill Karen standing by. But I want to start with Aaron Gilchrist joining us now, because it seems that the most significant of these is the one that just happened late today in Venezuela. Aaron, what do we know about the possibility of any injuries, about how people are doing there?
Less than an hour ago, this happened, Hallie, and at this point, there aren't any reports about any serious injuries or any major damage having happened here. But obviously, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake is a major earthquake, and this was one that happened a little after 6 o'clock Eastern time, apparently in the northwestern part of Venezuela. So putting it very much near the coast of Venezuela, the Caribbean coast of Venezuela. There are reports that there could have been some of the shaking felt in parts of Colombia, and as you've been saying, this video that we're seeing now out of the Caracas area, which is more than 100 miles away from where we believe the epicenter of this earthquake was, and still we see the shaking. You see people who felt that shaking running into the streets, getting reports about buildings with cracks potentially in some of these buildings. We've been hearing reports about bottles being knocked off of shelves in stores in this area, and obviously people very much concerned about their safety, running into the streets, trying to get to safe spaces, potentially to open spaces in case there were any buildings that might collapse. And again, at this point, an hour after this earthquake happened, we are not getting any reports about any buildings that have collapsed or seen any major damage, or any reports about people having been injured. Hallie, there are alerts that have been posted by the National Weather Service in this country about the potential for tsunamis in this area. An earthquake of this magnitude near the coast could potentially send waves to neighboring islands into the Caribbean Netherlands, into Aruba. There are reports about advisories at least being posted for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands to be on the lookout for potentially tsunami waves. Hallie.
Aaron Gilchrist, we'll look to see if we get more video coming into us, too. I know our teams are on top of that. Aaron, thanks. Let me bring in Bill Cairns now. Bill, can you talk about those tsunami advisories, basically? Because this is now, I mean, now you've got these experts tracking all of it, right? Because they want to know, is there something that's going to happen there in the Caribbean?
Yeah, so the U.S. Tsunami Warning Center just said we're at no risk whatsoever in the Gulf of America, the East Coast, of a tsunami. So that's good news. We know that this big, powerful earthquake, sometimes when they're this strong, they can produce devastating tsunamis. This one has not, and it's likely because of the type of earthquake it is. Some earthquakes can, shift this way, which all of a sudden makes the seafloor lift up, which then lifts the water up. Other earthquakes are slip faults like this, and if you slide this way, the water doesn't really displace. So it appears that's the type of earthquake we had. So that's great news for our friends in Dominican Republic and Haiti and all through Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So this 7.1 is the 6th strongest earthquake Venezuela has ever experienced. So they're no stranger to powerful earthquakes. There's a fault line that runs right through the northern half of the country, but this much shaking, and the depth was only about 6 to 10 miles. There's a lot of damage and a lot of shaking. Now, there's videos online in Caracas of a building that is completely collapsed. We have to verify all that stuff and make sure that it's legit and real in the world of AI and everything. But we'll be finding that out, and we'll be telling you those stories in the coming hours. The area where the earthquake occurred is 150 miles from Caracas. So if that video is legit, we have a building collapse in the capital here in Caracas. I can only imagine what San Felipe looks like. This is 250,000 people that call this home. That is roughly only 25 miles from the epicenter there. So, and there are buildings that are multiple stories in that location. So that's one of my great concerns there, Hallie. It's good news on the tsunami front, but I think the pictures, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg now. We're getting the video from Caracas, which is a long ways away from that epicenter. And there's just some of the pictures, obviously smoke and stuff like that. Scary times and scary scenes. This is going to be a long night in Venezuela to try to figure out who needs help and getting the resources there to help the people in need.
Well, and that's just it, being able to get those responders to where they need to be if there is, in fact, damage. We're going to obviously be watching that. Can you also talk to us about what we've seen off of Japan? Kind of a weird, strange day for earthquakes here. We had that one in California, the Northern California one you'll talk about, and then this one in Japan later.
Yeah, so the one in Venezuela happened at 4 minutes past 6 o'clock on the East Coast, so roughly just over an hour ago. And then a half hour after that, we just found out about one in Japan. So I want to just let you know, we tell you these magnitude and these numbers, which to most people doesn't mean anything. But these are the magnitude numbers. So if we get an 8+, we only get one of those on our planet a year. The reason we're so concerned with Venezuela is we only get a 7.0 magnitude to 7.9. We only get 18 of those on the planet each year. And that's why we're so concerned with the shaking and what the devastation is going to be like. Thankful that we don't have the tsunami. Now, if we go to what just happened in Japan, that's at a 6.9. We get roughly about 100 or so of those on the planet every year. This is well north of Tokyo, northern portions of Japan, just right off the coast. The one good positive is that this was at a depth of roughly 30 miles. And though the deeper it is, the less chance you're going to have a tsunami, so that's great. And also the deeper it is, that's more energy that gets displaced as it goes through the earth. So hopefully the shaking and any destruction in northern Japan won't be that bad. But a 6.8, can do some significant damage out there. And then finally, earlier today, we had a pretty good shake in northern California with a 5.8 magnitude earlier this morning near Ukiah, where there was some damage that was done in that area, but nothing like, what we're seeing to the south. And this is Ukiah. So you can picture, this is a 5.8 magnitude. And we're talking about a 6.8 that just happened and a 7.1. And these are logarithmic scales. So it's not just like, 10 times more. It's like 100 times. A 7 is like 100 times worse than a 6, if you could just kind of try to make that sense. So you will continue to follow this story, but yeah, it's amazing. We have a 6.8 and a 7.1, totally different spots on the planet. Pretty rare.
No kidding. Keep us posted if you hear of any aftershocks too, Bill. I know we're watching that as well. Appreciate you. Thank you. We are also tracking fires, speaking of the West, in the West, with multiple fires burning out of control in Utah. Look at this. You see how many, flames, smoke, all of it, tens of thousands of acres incinerated, with firefighters trying to get out there, but it is so hot. Look at this, a Ring camera capturing the moments that this fire closes in on a home, the flames creeping closer. The skies there looking black and orange. And in New Mexico, a huge wall of smoke and fire inching closer to this busy road, all of it fueled by the extreme heat across the country. And Europe, boy, it is blistering over there. Paris just had its hottest ever June day on record, 106 degrees. In London, a climate conference on extreme heat, ironically, was canceled because of extreme heat. Our Danielle Hamamdjian is tracking all of it.
Tonight, firefighters battling out-of-control wildfires out west. From Colorado to Utah to New Mexico, the fires scorching thousands of acres. The intense smoke seen here covering the sky in Utah. This Ring camera capturing flames surrounding this home. And in New Mexico, watch as this fire gets dangerously close to a highway. The blazes fueled by extreme heat across the country. The brutal temperatures also being felt in France as more than 50 million suffer a brutal heat wave.
Unbearably hot. It's just ridiculous. You can't seem to escape it.
While thousands of Parisians are flocking to the Canal Saint-Martin to cool off, the city reached 106 degrees, breaking a June record. While Paris once again had to close iconic landmarks, including the Louvre.
There would normally be hundreds of people here waiting in line to step inside the most visited museum in the world. But look at it now. It's the middle of the afternoon and the doors have just closed.
Around the country, at least 48 people have drowned since last week while trying to escape the heat. Americans in Paris trying to catch a break.
We booked an Airbnb, spent one night there. It had air conditioning, but the air conditioning was not anywhere near sufficient. No one slept.
As so many struggle to cope during the extreme heat.
That's right, Hallie. So many have been left without power. Meanwhile, in the French capital, the parks are open all night, swimming pools have extended hours, and a lot of people spending a lot of time in their car where there is guaranteed air conditioning. Hallie?
Danielle Hamamjian, thank you very much. Here in Washington, growing frustration inside the Republican Party tonight after President Trump did this sudden pulling of the plug for a popular bipartisan bill to try to make it easier to buy a house. We'll tell you what we're learning tonight now about a blow-up behind closed doors, as our Gabe Gutierrez reports.
The stage had been set, but tonight an abrupt cancellation. President Trump suddenly scrapping a planned signing ceremony for a bipartisan bill to lower housing costs.
I'm proud of the work of the House and Senate to get people to yes.
But as that news conference was unfolding, President Trump pulled the plug, posting the signing ceremony was canceled until such time as we passed the desperately needed Save America Act, part of his rift with some Senate Republicans. Then came a tense lunch with the Senate GOP.
We're very proud of the party. We like our leader. We like everybody really in the room. I don't like a few people, but that's okay.
The deepening divide coming a day after 4 Senate Republicans joined Democrats to pass a symbolic measure urging the president to end the war with Iran.
Iran is making very big concessions. We'll see what happens.
One of those Republicans, Senator Bill Cassidy, told us he lost his temper and said the president also raised his voice while talking about that vote.
I feel like there's answers that need to be given and they've not been given.
The president now saying he won't sign the housing bill, which cuts regulations to spark construction, unless Congress first passes the Save America Act, which mandates photo ID and proof of citizenship to vote.
We have to press for election integrity measures. That's why we've made it a top priority.
Democrats oppose it, arguing the sweeping bill would place too many restrictions on voting.
Instead of doing what the American people need and want, he's off saying, I'm going to keep a bunch of them from voting. And that's what he's thrown down on.
While late today, President Trump asking the Justice Department to investigate oil companies, saying with oil prices plummeting, gas prices should be falling faster.
The oil companies are possibly gouging. I hope they're not, otherwise they're going to be in big trouble.
Gabe is joining us now from the National Mall, where Gabe, President Trump is set to speak not long from now at a celebration for America's 250th birthday. Do we have any sense of how far he's willing to go to oppose this housing bill? Are we talking veto or no?
Well, Hallie, the president did not directly answer that question today. Some House Republicans are telling us that they're just stunned by how this all went down, one of them calling it, quote, crazy. Now, if the president takes no action, Hallie, the housing bill becomes law in 10 days. Now, as for this event, this is an event that was hastily planned in just a few weeks. You remember several musical acts had dropped out of the Great American State Fair. The president decided to hold a rally himself. There was a military band playing a short time ago. We're expecting a military flyover. And as you said, the president is expected to take the stage in just a short time, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez here in Washington. Thanks. Also breaking tonight, an Air Canada flight making an emergency landing after a medical emergency for the pilot. New video from Boston's Logan Airport shows the pilot being taken away, look, on a stretcher there, and then taken to the hospital. Air Canada says the flight was headed from Newark Airport to Halifax when it was forced to divert there in Boston. The first officer then took control, followed protocol. The captain was taken for medical treatment in Boston. Also tonight, nearly a year after the flood that devastated Texas Hill Country, Camp Mystic, the summer camp where 27 young girls and counselors died, has filed for bankruptcy. Our Morgan Chesky explains what it could mean for the families still seeking justice.
Tonight, amid tragedy, lawsuits, and no license to operate, the 100-year-old Camp Mystic filing for bankruptcy. The overnight filing by the all-girls camp raising questions over its future and litigation against it, following the deaths of its owner, 25 campers, and 2 counselors last July when the Guadalupe River surged nearly 40 feet out of its banks. Documents obtained by NBC News show Mystic claiming total debt exceeds $10 million. The filing pausing all wrongful death and negligence suits scheduled for next year. Camp owners admitting in April they wish they had evacuated sooner.
We tried our hardest that night, and it wasn't enough to save your daughters.
The fight for accountability, led by Heavens 27, formed by the families who lost their daughters.
As a mother or a parent, really, there's a desperate need to know, what did you go through? Were you alone? Were you with someone? Were you afraid? Was it fast?
8 of those mothers sitting down with our own Lester Holt.
Could this tragedy have been averted?
100%.
Yes. Our girls should be here. With the time frame, there's time for them all, the whole camp, to evacuate safely.
Camp Mystic's attorney telling Lester staff did follow their policy of sheltering in place, but suffered without a better flood detection system.
Every time it rains, there's a risk of flash floods, but that's not the same thing as what happened here. This was a 1,000-year flood that nobody's ever seen before.
Morgan is joining us now. Morgan, I understand you have a new response now from some of the families of the campers and counselors who died to this bankruptcy filing.
Hallie, we do. We're hearing from an attorney that represents multiple Mystic victims, and they say in part that this bankruptcy filing will not stand in the way of holding people accountable, adding that those young, innocent victims deserve justice. Hallie.
Morgan Chesky, thank you very much. On that special new episode of Dateline, you saw a bit of it there. Our Lester Holt is sitting down with some of those parents who lost their daughters in those horrific floods. That's Friday, 10 Eastern, 9 Central, right here on NBC. Now to the seismic sweep, the political shockwaves, if you will, in some of New York's key primary elections, with each of the congressional candidates backed by the city's mayor, Zohran Mamdani in New York, beating establishment Democrats in competitive primaries. All 3 either Democratic Socialists or closely aligned with the DSA, so basically progressive, beating out either incumbents or candidates backed by incumbents. Sam Brock is following this and joins us now. So, Sam, broaden the aperture here. This is not simply a New York story. There are Democrats and, frankly, Republicans all over the country, including here in Washington, who are watching what has happened in New York, watching, the strength of Mamdani's endorsement and maybe trying to figure out, are these progressive victories in the city replicable for other Democrats trying to win in other places?
So far, Hallie, this has largely been a phenomenon that we've seen develop in New York, much more so extravagantly, let's say, than in other parts of the country. It's also fascinating just that you and I were having conversations like 6 or 7 months ago ahead of the mayoral election here in New York, talking about Zohran Mamdani and whether or not this is a phenomenon. What is this democratic socialism thing? And sort of trying to parse through the platform, right? Because there's not a ton of daylight necessarily between DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and the general mainstream Democratic platform when it comes to things like advocating for immigrants' rights, creating more affordable housing, raising the minimum wage. But when you start talking about the issue of Israel and vehement opposition to what is happening in Gaza and specifically trying to cut military aid for the country, it sort of was a dividing line here in some of these races. I mean, you saw Brad Lander on there a second ago. He unseated or at least knocked off Dan Goldman in a part of Lower Manhattan in Brooklyn where it was a landslide. Brad Lander, who is Jewish, by the way, Dan Goldman is as well. They both criticized the Israeli government for their actions in Gaza. But the difference is that when you're talking about Brad Lander specifically, he has been advocating for divestment from Israeli bonds. He's talking about the idea of not providing aid to Israel. These are far away from sort of the Democratic core of largely supporting Israel as an ally. And we saw this across the board. I would turn your attention, that's in the 10th district. In the 13th as well, you had Daria Lisa Chevalier, who is 32 years old, had no previous political experience, Hallie, and knocked off a Congressman Espaillat, who was the first undocumented undocumented immigrant in the United States to gain citizenship and make his way all the way to Congress. She's on the left side of your screen there. She is a political unknown, but yet her case was more compelling after she was endorsed by Mamdani and took these more strident views with respect to Israel. It's incredible. That's not obviously a holistic only subject that is what's creating some of the pathways for those DSA candidates, but it certainly feels like it's a big part of it.
So what's interesting here, Sam, to your point that this is maybe, a New York-centric thing, President Trump and some Republicans, I mean, we are already seeing reaction from them. The idea that Republicans may try to paint, more Democrats as uber progressive, even in some of these swing districts where more moderates tend to do better.
There is no other mayoral or executive office in the United States that compares to the profile of New York and Zohran Mamdani. You're not going to find DSA candidates running large other cities in the U.S., and the Republican Party has really capitalized on this. You had a great flag earlier today that you had the National Republican Congressional Committee, the NRCC, that effectively sent flowers today to Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is part of, let's say, the Democratic mainstream. 3 losses in one night is tough. We wanted so-called Leader Jeffries to know our thoughts are with him, his candidates, and whatever remains of his influence in the Democratic Party. The reality is you have the president weighing in tonight, Hallie, and basically saying if the Democrats nominate a Democratic socialist in 2028, they're not going to win. You might as well just count our victory right now. There is this push and pull between what are, I guess, the left leaning parts of the party, much like you see with MAGAverse, and how it sort of controls the narrative around Republican politics too. Where does the truth lie in the middle, or the farther left and right portions of the party going to dictate where the general population is? So far, we've really only seen this on a large scale in New York City, but it's not to say it won't develop. It's sort of a wait-and-see situation.
Sam Brock, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. We are back in a moment with much more here, including the American boy attacked by a shark in the Bahamas. The latest on how he's doing and where he was. We are back now, and following a shark attack in the Bahamas, a 12-year-old boy was bitten and then taken by boat to the hospital. Let me bring in Ryan Chandler, who has more. What happened here? How's this little boy doing?
Well, Hallie, this happened in Staniel Cay. It's a small island in the Bahamas, about 75 miles south of Nassau, the capital there. And the victim's mother called police, alerting them that her 12-year-old boy had been attacked by a shark while swimming on a tour of the area with his brother. Fortunately, that boy is expected to be okay, in stable condition tonight. He was taken by boat to another island and treated. But this is not the first instance we've heard of a shark attack recently in the Bahamas. There were 2 American tourists who were attacked there last year as well. The Bahamas is known as one of the riskiest areas in the world for shark attacks. There have been more than 30 since we started keeping records there, Hallie.
As we talk about sharks, Ryan, and it's good to know that that boy is expected to be okay, there's another interesting shark encounter. No bites, fortunately, but this one's in California, where they're kind of, this shark was like circling these paddle boarders, right?
This video is incredible. Fortunately, it didn't lead to any bites, but it started with an adventure that you're not going to catch me on, Hallie. Look at some of this video. You're going to see Kayla Ross and her uncle Robert on this paddleboard. They went out to actually find that shark. They were in the area, the Santa Barbara area, for Father's Day. They heard that there was a great white shark in the water, and this is where you lose me. They said, we're going to rent a paddleboard and go try and find it. They did a lot better than they probably expected to. They found that shark. Look how close it gets. Maybe the shark found them. Fortunately, though, it was just a really cool brush with nature, and they were able to get back to shore safely. But wow, what an opportunity that you would not find me on that paddleboard, Hallie.
Why? Why did they try to find the shark? Do we know?
Just a cool opportunity to see nature up close. Fortunately, I mean, risky for sure, but they got some cool pictures maybe and got back to shore safely.
Okay, Ryan Chandler. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Coming up, the very scary scene at a Six Flags with riders left dangling hundreds of feet up in the air. We'll tell you what happened. And the dramatic emergency landing in Alaska. A small plane packed with people crashing down in the wilderness. All of it captured on camera with a rare look inside. We'll show it to you next. To New York City now, where the former chief of staff to Mayor Eric Adams has been arrested. And in a separate case, the FBI is carrying out raids tied to an investigation into current and former NYPD officials. Our NBC's Chief Justice contributor Jonathan Dienst has more.
Frank Carone, one-time chief of staff to Mayor Adams, left federal court after pleading not guilty. Carone accused of taking $120,000 in cash payoffs. The FBI says in exchange, Carone abused his power at City Hall to push a migrant contract to this man, Andy Zhu. Zhu allegedly wanted his microtel in Long Island City to be used as a shelter in order to get $6.8 million in emergency city payments. Prosecutors say Zhu offered Carone $10,000 a month for a year, and that money was wired through Carone's brother, Anthony Carone, and his law firm. Defense attorney Arthur Aidala.
If you really look at the facts that are alleged here, there is not one fact that indicates Frank Carone did anything specific to influence anything in our government.
Zhu's associate Crystal Chen also pleaded not guilty. She allegedly boasted about the payoff scheme with Frank and Anthony Carone. In the end, it's all about money and giving the two brothers a way out. The charges against Carone come after Mayor Adams himself was previously charged with corruption-related counts, including alleged campaign finance abuses and taking free travel from Turkish officials. The Trump Justice Department dropped that case. Additional corruption-related investigations into the Adams administration ongoing. Today, there were court-authorized searches of 4 current and former NYPD officials. The mayor earlier.
This is an investigation that the NYPD is conducting with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York.
Former Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry had his Queens home searched again. Madry in the past has denied any wrongdoing amid questions about an overtime for sex matter, which resulted in his resignation. Former NYPD spokesman Tariq Shepard today had his phone seized by the feds, and the NYPD and feds seen searching the East 68th Street home of current Chief James McCarthy and a Lieutenant James Lee. Both McCarthy and Lee are now on modified duty. None of the officers face any criminal charges. Commissioner Tisch issued a statement. I promised New Yorkers that under my leadership, the NYPD would conduct itself with integrity and that there would be a thorough investigation of any claim that members of service failed to meet that standard. Other Adams administration officials have faced scrutiny, from former NYPD Commissioner Eddie Caban to Phil Banks, the former deputy mayor for public safety, to former chief advisor Ingrid Lewis Martin, who has pleaded not guilty to state corruption-related counts. Today's developments show other criminal investigations from the Adams era are very much ongoing. Frank Carone released on $2 million bail after his plea of not guilty. Hallie?
Jonathan Deans, thank you very much. Now to the arrest decades in the making. Police charging a man with murder 20 years after his wife fell to her death at Zion National Park. Liz Kreutz has the details.
It's been 20 years since Bernadette Vandermeer died after falling more than 1,000 feet while hiking with her then husband, former youth pastor David Vandermeer, on the iconic Angels Landing Trail at Zion National Park. At the time, the 29-year-old's death was ruled an accident. But now, 2 decades later, police have arrested her former husband and charged him with murder. Utah investigators saying new evidence proves he intentionally and knowingly caused her death.
There was a motive for David Vandermeer to commit this crime. There were several motives.
According to prosecutors, David Vandermeer had been unfaithful to Bernadette for years after he began a relationship with an underage girl who was part of the church youth group he ran. Investigators say that woman recently told them Bernadette's death happened 2 days after she had told David she wanted to break off the relationship, and that David had previously said to her the only way they could be together is if Bernadette was not alive. The two later married, but then divorced. David is now a yoga instructor recently seen here preaching about mindfulness.
We can uncover a whole lot about ourselves by noticing more.
Tonight, Bernadette's parents speaking out, saying their daughter's death always seemed suspicious.
I suspected him all along.
3 weeks when they were dating, I said to her, I don't trust him. And I did not, and I never did trust him.
Liz is joining us now. Liz, it is a remarkable story. I mean, there's really some twists and turns here, not least of which is the fact that this happened 2 decades ago. So walk us through why this was reopened so many years later.
Yeah, hey, Hallie, it really is kind of a wild story. But what the affidavit says is that in recent years, investigators received various tips that piqued their interest related to David Vandermeer and his behavior, including new allegations about what they say was inappropriate behavior towards some of the other people that were in that youth group that he ran. In fact, one of the people that sent in a tip was David Vandermeer's former boss at that church, who had been hearing from some of the then students who maybe were now speaking out years later to him. What we know is that he's charged with murder and also insurance fraud. He did take out a life insurance policy in his then wife's name. He is expected in court tomorrow, and we have attempted to find an attorney for him. We've not been able to reach them. Hallie.
Okay, Liz Kreutz, I imagine we may be talking again 24 hours from now, depending on updates in this one. Appreciate you. To Top Stories news feed now, and an update on those drug charges against Bodie Miller we told you about last night. The skiing legend's attorney now says the charges are being dismissed. Miller, who obviously a gold medalist in the Olympics, says that he was pulled over on an Idaho highway for speeding, according to his post. And a friend with him had some cannabis and a cannabis pipe. Miller's lawyer says that passenger claimed ownership of all of it. We've reached out to the prosecutor in the case, but haven't heard back. New video, too, of a pretty wild moment at a Six Flags in Georgia. This ride, 260 feet up, suddenly stopped. So look at this. These people are just dangling midair. There they are. They're just sort of perched way above the park. Happened last week. No word yet on what caused the ride to stop, but Six Flags officials say the delay lasted about 10 minutes. And, you know, animals go missing a lot, sadly, but it is not every day that you lose track of a giraffe. You heard about Gracie? She is hard to miss, folks. She apparently busted out of a ranch in Texas. Honestly, rather conspicuous. The county sheriff says he thinks she's been on the run for like 2 weeks. She was last seen on Monday, so there have been some spottings of her. The ranch owner is offering $5,000 for any information that gets Gracie back home. To Miami next now, where a heated World Cup match is happening as we speak. Scotland facing off with Brazil, the country with the most wins in tournament history. Guess what? We've got a man right in the thick of the action, our George Solis. Look at you. This is exciting. I'm so curious as to what is happening both around you and on you.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them. We've been talking to the Tartan Army, and really, we've just decided to assimilate now. Unfortunately, they are down 3-0 to Brazil. But you know what? As we've been talking and covering the fandom here, these people not dejected. They have been having a good time here. Of course, the game is going on now, so all eyes are fixated to the screen. You might be able to just see a sea of yellow and green there. Some of the Brazil fans obviously very attentive, watching to see their team potentially make another historic World Cup run. Of course, for Scotland, this would have been we're still out of game. We can't say that they're down and out yet, but obviously trying to get to the next stage, the knockout stage, would have been a big deal. So, of course, again, we're still waiting to see what unfolds here. The other big storyline is waiting to see whether star Neymar will get into the game. He's been warming up here in the last several minutes. He didn't play the last two games. Of course, a lot of people waiting to see what he does for the World Cup. And actually, as I'm looking to my right here, I'm told he's in the game now. So obviously, a whole level of excitement ramping up here with this World Cup. And again, unfortunately, I could not get a kilt for the occasion, but some of the fans here decided, you know what, this is close enough. So I'm rocking the gear for at least this moment. Maybe by the end of this, I will find a kilt through all of this, Hallie.
You know, as long as there's pants involved, we're happy to see whatever. George Solis, really in it. You're with the Tartan Army. We love that for you. We're glad you're having a good time in Miami. Hey, come back, because there's more storylines. I know we want to talk about World Cup in the days to come. It's been incredible to watch. George, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
To the unbelievable moments now that an airplane made an emergency landing in Alaska, a crash landing, basically, with one of the people on board filming all of it from inside. Here's Tom Costello.
The harrowing moments caught on camera as a Ride Air flight was forced to crash land in Alaska's Glacier Pass. Despite a terrifying few moments, no screaming, no panic. Everyone's safe on the ground.
It's not ideal.
One pilot and 8 passengers, including Brett Filippi, who filmed it all.
How's this for your first time in Alaska?
No, this doesn't usually happen.
Flight 4AW flew from Fairbanks to Coldfoot, then on to Inuktitut Pass, but along the way developed engine trouble. In a blog post, Felipe says the pilot turned back to us and said that he was looking for a spot to land. I cinched my seatbelt tight. Suddenly, an open clearing in the Alaskan wilderness. The impact dug skid marks in the ground, but the dirt-covered plane left mostly intact.
Had an emergency crash landing out here in the bush. Thank you. Thank you.
30 minutes later, a search plane was overhead.
They found us.
2 hours later, a helicopter began lifting everyone out.
Everyone's safe, and that's what matters.
Soon, all 9 were back in Coldfoot.
The Cessna 208 Caravan is a reliable, rugged plane with an equally reliable engine. Tonight, passengers are crediting the pilot with saving their lives. Hallie?
Tom Costello, thank you. Still to come here on the show tonight, our new reporting on that botulism outbreak linked to infant formula, with many babies still sick. The latest on the investigation and why families are still searching for answers. Plus, taking the top spot, the new supercomputer just crowned the most powerful machine in the world. So who made it? We've got that answer next. We are back now with Top Stories Health Check, and the babies still on the road to recovery months after a botulism outbreak linked to infant formula. You remember this? It was big news back in November. This organic baby formula maker, ByHeart, and the FDA issuing a nationwide recall of all ByHeart formula products. It was the first botulism outbreak ever associated with this. Between December 2023 and December 2025, 48 babies across 17 states got sick in this outbreak. No deaths were reported. But I want to bring in NBC's Erica Edwards, who's been tracking this. She has some new reporting tonight. Erica, you talked with several families whose babies were diagnosed with infant botulism. How are they doing now? What was the treatment like?
Yeah, all 48 of those babies had to have an emergency treatment called Baby Big. It's an IV medicine made from the plasma of people who've been immunized against botulism. Now, it doesn't reverse the damage that's already been done, but it can stop the toxin from wreaking more havoc. Now, recovery for these babies takes months, sometimes more than a year. These are babies who are having to relearn how to use their muscles, to eat, to digest, to sit up, crawl, even walk. Hallie?
What about the reasons for why the bacteria that causes botulism got into this formula? Do we know that yet?
No, we don't. This is still very much an ongoing investigation. Those bacteria spores were found in canned ByHeart formula, as well as a powdered milk ingredient that came from ByHeart's milk supplier, Dairy Farmers of America. But no one has figured out how that bacteria got there. Even though the ByHeart outbreak is officially over, the FDA said it's still looking into ingredients and how those ingredients are then processed into formula. Hallie?
But what about this other outbreak, Erica? Separate, I think, from this one that's linked to a different formula, basically, but still kind of the same issues.
That's right. About 10 days ago, Nara Organics recalled all of its infant formula products after 3 babies who had that formula developed botulism. Now, it's really important to note here, none of those Nara samples have tested positive for that bacteria so far. That investigation also still ongoing. Both companies voluntarily took those products off the market. Both told me that they are cooperating fully. Hallie?
So what are parents to do here, Erica, if they have concerns, if they're using formula? What do experts say about how to prevent something like this moving forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about these outbreaks. Having 2 back-to-back problems with infant formula is unprecedented, and food safety experts say that they are watching this investigation closely. That said, they stress that infant formula in this country is regulated and is overwhelmingly safe and necessary for many babies to get proper nutrition. Hallie?
Erica Edwards, thank you very much for bringing that to us tonight. Appreciate it. Let's head overseas now with Top Stories Global Watch, starting in Syria, where the U.S. military, says it carried out a strike that killed a senior ISIS leader. It happened Friday, but the U.S. says this was part of a broader mission targeting alleged militants trying to attack Americans. It comes as the Islamic State has ramped up operations against the Syrian government after it joined the U.S.-led coalition to defeat ISIS. And France has now confirmed its first case of Ebola linked to that outbreak in the DRC. The health ministry says they detected the disease in a doctor who recently returned from a humanitarian mission there. Officials say that doctor is now isolating and that the threat to others across Europe remains low. And for the first time in nearly a decade, it is a Chinese supercomputer now holding the title of the world's most powerful machine. Look at it here. It's called the Lineshine computer. It beat out its U.S. counterpart known as El Capitan, which is housed at a government lab in California. The list is put out by the group Top 500 and is sometimes viewed as a measure of a nation's technological expertise. Finally tonight, when a boy lost his favorite stuffy on a recent trip, his mom turned to, what else, TikTok for help. And thanks to the hardworking staff at Minneapolis Airport, this one ends in good news. For 10-year-old Asher Egan, Athena the dog has been a lifelong companion.
She gives me a lot of comfort. She helps me through hard times.
A stuffy, much loved, modeled after a real pet who died when Asher was just 1. This adorable German shepherd now goes with him everywhere.
She's been around the globe to like Sweden, Finland, Slovenia, Canada.
But last week, returning home to Minneapolis from Boston, Athena made an unexpected detour.
When it was time for bed, I just realized I didn't have her.
So I got the idea to post a TikTok to get some help.
So Asher's mom, Romina, started pleading for a safe return.
It doesn't take that much time out of my day to make a kid happy.
Enter MSP airport officer Luis Oliveira, who heard about Asher's search. After scouring CCTV footage, he managed to track down Athena to Delta's Lost and Found.
You missing something?
All leading up to this incredible moment.
What do you think? Is that the one? Is that Athena? Good job, man.
I don't think words can express how thankful we are. There is still so much kindness out there. Strangers willing to help, willing to do whatever it takes to help others.
Thank you so much for watching Top Story. For Tom, I'm Hallie Jackson in Washington. Stay right there. We've got more news now on the way.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.